So kind of explain to me, like, what are you hoping for in the position of county executive? Like, what do you see are some of the positives that you want to continue to do? And maybe some of the negative things that necessarily we don't want to focus on, but that we know that we kind of need to push behind us and move forward?
That's a big question. I think that anyone that's been in leadership the past 2 years has recognized that change is going to happen. And in some cases, again, as we've experienced, dramatic, cultural, permanent change is going to happen. You simply cannot avoid it. You have to figure out, and I really hate the word pivot, but you do. You have to figure out, how do we achieve our goals when everything around us is kind of swirling? The county has plenty of services that are statutorily mandated by the state that we deliver.
Yeah.
So there's no question about whether you're going to do that. It's, in the instance of a global pandemic, how do you deliver health services?
Yeah.
The county's responsible for public health.
Yeah.
So one of the things we've learned, the days of mass quantities of people finding their way to one, health clinic, those are gone.
Yeah.
And I'm really proud of the work that the health department has done, because they have pivoted and have taken on doing pop-ups where you can look at actual true data from maps. So where, the concentration of need is on any given topic.
Yeah.
Whether it's, you can determine where opioid overdoses are occurring in a higher concentration. You know that your pop-up that dispenses Narcan can be focused in that area.
Yeah.
So I think that ability to change,
Yep.
and recognize that every day you're adapting. We have a dramatically changing workforce.
Yep.
The county, first and foremost, is an employer. We have almost 1,100 employees. So all these things we talk about only get done if you can recruit, hire, retain, grow great employees.
Yep.
And that is a constant challenge. It's a bigger challenge now than it's ever been, and that's not going to change. And we simply cannot compete just on compensation.
Yep.
Private companies can pay more. Other municipalities next door to us can pay more for many of our positions. So what we can do is build a culture
Yep.
where people understand they're valued and there's a career path.
Yep.
And that starts early on from education and from even, figuring out how as a community do we make sure that we're building a cradle to career pathway.
What's going to be the biggest challenge for you feel?
I mean, going back to what we talked about, I think that very quickly building that culture where we can absolutely retain the employees we have now, and expanding that culture so that we can recruit and hire those people. There are a couple of areas of the county where we have a huge deficit right now. In things like at Brookside, some of the nursing assistants, in our correctional facilities where literally we need so many of those, and it's very easy for those individuals to go somewhere tomorrow and make more money. And so those are two very critical functions.
Yeah.
Very critical. My vision is with the 2023 budget that would be presented in the fall of this year, we will present that tied to specific key performance indicators, metrics. And so for where it makes sense, for which department it makes sense, say, this is the money we're spending, this is the outcome that we are hoping to achieve. So that over the next year, you can begin to tie those two things together.
Yeah.
And for individual programs, you can identify, well, great, this is really doing a great job. How do we optimize it? How do we, scale it up?
Yeah.
And then for the things where we're not seeing that, take a hard look at how do we fix it?
Yep.
Can it be fixed? Or is it better to invest in something else?
Yeah.
So that those months between being sworn in and presenting that budget, that will be, the majority of the focus. Now, again, if you had asked someone 2 years ago what their first priority would be, they would not have said deal with a global pandemic or anything else. But if all things being equal, that is going to have to get done. And that sets up a foundation for the for the subsequent years if we do it correctly and build a consensus around it and start to say this is a culture that has to be created at the top.
Yep.
And it cascades down through every aspect of county government, as well as any partners, community partners that we help fund or that we finance in some way. That standard has to filter out everywhere. So that's probably the job number one.
Yeah, and I like the idea of culture, because I think if you can build a solid culture, you're going to attract people to be like, I want to be a part of that. I like what that looks like. I feel like I can contribute to that. So that's to me, I feel is very important. I do also like the KPIs. So being a business owner myself, key performance indicators are very crucial to help me make decisions on what the next quarter, the next year, the next 5 years look like. And they may do that already now, but just focusing on KPIs, because that's your best data. It shows you what you're investing in, and if it's not getting what you want, you have to figure something else out. If it's getting you what you're looking for, you know you're on the right track and you continue to improve.
One of the things, if I can just interrupt you, one of the things that you notice in county government, oftentimes, like in my business, when we look at those metrics, they're not as impactful to an individual's life. Whereas when you look at those metrics in county government, one of the ones that I keep coming back to, because it's about $11 million. So one line item, about $11 million, that's 11% of the Department of Human Services budget, is the money that is spent on court-mandated out-of-home placements for kids.
Yep.
And that's a whole continuum. That's kids that need immediate and maybe unexpected foster care, kids that need planned but maybe more advanced foster care, like a family that knows how to deal with kids of trauma, all the way to treatment facilities, and huge dollar amount and huge numbers of kids. When you look at it, average number of kids per night, huge numbers, but that doesn't even begin the three-dimensional aspect of that being like a kid's life.
Right.
Those metrics are even more serious. There's more weight to it, and you have to you can't simply just be about the metrics. You have to remember that in this case, that that kid that's in an out-of-state treatment facility is a kid that's already dealing with everything horrible that you can think of, has serious needs, and yet they also have to experience being driven from Kenosha County to perhaps New England by law enforcement.
Yeah.
And that just, so there's something about metric driven, but also that like servant heart that has to be together, because you have to be the metric driven, and we have to look at it like, ideally we want less kids in out of home placements every night.
Right.
But it's not as simple as just saying, you
This is
can't
the
just
data,
stay to the number.
It's the human element that comes to it, that you have a heart, you have a feel for what that person might be going through, and you have to make decisions based off of the data, and also what is the best, just from a human perspective.
These are important numbers, but they're not. They're lives. They're not just numbers, and that is something that that's a balance. That you have to make sure when you build that culture. It's the same thing I said before about you can't just come in and say we're gonna reduce. You can't do that. This is a really tricky one. It's pretty unique in leadership positions.
Let's flip that. What would you be most excited about being in the county executive position?
I am very much a person who likes to make positivity contagious. And I think that opportunity in not micromanaging, but being a participant in action across the departments is the most exciting thing to me. And starting to help create that can actually be cool. Like it doesn't have to be, people tend to think of county government as being older, as being, less innovative, and it isn't those things, and it also doesn't have to be those things. I also do, having worked in technology, I love to look at new solutions that are technology based. I think we could do a better job of onboarding technologies that lead to efficiencies, which are going to save you money.
Yep.
That's something I look forward to. And then really creating a foundation that we can grow an even larger, more diversified economic development base. I think we do a great job in certain verticals right now, but I also think we have potential in so many other areas to attract people. Now that means we have to bring a workforce in,
Yep.
but that potential and being someone who is nonstop talking about that potential every day,
Yep.
that like has motivated me. Like that gets me up every morning. Why I keep campaigning, because that's the end goal.
Yeah, and I think too, like just, being born and raised in Kenosha and just knowing the opportunity that is out there, when you're talking about workforce recruitment, and then all of a sudden, like right in my mind, I'm thinking right away, okay, we have UW Parkside, we have Gateway Technical College, like we have these pillars already in the community. Then how do we attract that talent that's going through those schooling systems to stay here? And how do we attract others from outside to come along as well? And not only along with that is like the other opportunities of like making things fresh. Like you're saying, county government being more part of social media, because that's where people are at. That's where they're going to learn how they can be involved and what they can do. I don't think right now there is a good sense of how do I get involved? There isn't a good sense of what can I do? And some people need that push of like, tell me what to do. And other people just want to know, where do I go? Because I'll take action from there. And I think that's lacking in both sides.
Or that thing looks cool that person is doing.
Right.
I would like to do that thing.
Absolutely.